The woman's voice cracked like dry leather against the desert wind. I can't survive this. Blood seeped through her fingers where she pressed them against her side, dark stains spreading across the faded calico dress. She sat propped against the weathered barn wall, her face pale as morning frost. Cole Brennan had been checking his traps when he heard the gunshots echoing from the valley below. 3 sharp cracks, then silence that stretched longer than a funeral prayer. Now he stood 10 feet away from the stranger, his rifle steady in weathered hands, studying her with the caution of a man who'd learned that mercy could be more dangerous than a loaded gun. Who shot you? His voice carried no warmth, just the flat tone of someone who'd buried too many good intentions. She lifted her head, revealing eyes the color of storm clouds. Young, maybe 25, with the kind of beauty that drew trouble like honey drew flies. Doesn't matter now. Her breathing came shallow, labored. They'll be coming. Cole's jaw tightened. His ranch sat in a bowl of red rock and scrub pine, isolated enough that visitors meant either very good news or very bad news. Given the blood and the fear in her eyes, he figured this wasn't about the church social. How many? 4. She tried to shift position and winced. Maybe 5. I lost count when the shooting started. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of sage and something else, something that made the hair on Cole's neck prickle. In the distance, dust devils danced across the hard pan like ghosts warning of what was coming. He took a step toward her, then stopped. His boot had struck something half buried in the dirt beside the barn. Something that shouldn't have been there. Something that made his blood turn to ice water in his veins. A child's wooden toy horse, carved with exquisite detail, painted in faded blues and whites. The same horse he'd buried with his son 3 years ago, 20 miles from here, in the cemetery behind the old mission. Cole's rifle wavered in his grip. The woman watched him with those storm cloud eyes, and for the first time since he'd found her, she smiled. Where did you get this? Cole's voice barely rose above a whisper, but it carried the weight of a man's entire world cracking apart. The woman's smile faded, replaced by something that might have been pity. I told you they were coming. Cole knelt beside the toy horse, his hands shaking as he brushed dirt from the carved mane. Every groove, every paint mark, it was identical to the one he'd placed in Tommy's small hands before they lowered the pine box into the ground. The same horse Tommy had clutched during the fever that took him, whispering stories about riding across clouds. This was buried with my boy. The words tasted like ashes. Nobody knew about it except your wife. The woman's voice cut through his denial like a blade. Sarah told me where to find it. Before they killed her. The world tilted. Cole's vision blurred at the edges, and for a moment he was back in town, standing in the sheriff's office, being told about the accident. The wagon overturned on the mountain road, Sarah's body found in the ravine, no witnesses, no explanation. Just another tragedy in a territory that collected them like tumbleweeds. Sarah's been dead 6 months. His voice cracked like a 14-year-old boy's. Has she? The woman struggled to her feet, one hand still pressed to her wounded side. Or has she been trying to get back to you? A rider appeared on the ridge, silhouetted against the bruised sky. Then another. Cole counted 4 shapes moving with the patience of men who knew their prey had nowhere to run. The woman touched his shoulder, and her hand was cold as winter stones. They killed her because she found out what they were doing. Using the cemetery, the consecrated ground. Sarah tried to stop them, tried to warn the families. Her breathing grew more labored. They couldn't let her live with that knowledge. Cole's mind reeled. The stories he'd heard in town, whispered conversations that stopped when he walked into the saloon. Graves disturbed, families finding evidence their loved ones' rest had been violated. The sheriff dismissing it all as wild tales and Indian mischief. What do they want? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer would damn them all. The woman looked toward the approaching riders, then back at Cole. They want to finish what they started. And they want you to watch. The riders had spread out now, forming a loose circle around the ranch. Cole could see the glint of rifle barrels, the slow, deliberate way they moved. Like pallbearers carrying death itself. The lead rider wore a black duster that hung on his frame like mourning clothes. Sheriff Hawkins. Cole recognized him now, though the badge on his chest seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Behind him rode the Undertaker, Gideon Morse, and two men Cole didn't recognize, their faces sharp as hatchet blades. "Afternoon, Cole." Hawkins' voice carried across the yard with false courtesy. "Heard you might have something that belongs to us." Cole stepped in front of the woman, his rifle raised. "Don't know what you're talking about, Sheriff." Hawkins laughed, a sound like nails scraping coffin wood. "That little lady behind you's been causing us considerable trouble. Digging where she shouldn't dig, asking questions that don't need answering." He shifted in his saddle, and Cole caught sight of something that made his stomach clench, a small pile of children's toys tied to the saddle horn. A rag doll, a tin soldier, a carved wooden bird. "You've been robbing graves." The words came out flat, matter-of-fact. "Robbing?" Morse spoke up, his Undertaker's voice oily with false indignation. "We prefer to think of it as redistribution. Amazing what grieving families will bury with their loved ones. Gold rings, silver crosses, family heirlooms. Such a waste, leaving it all to rot in the ground." The woman's hand found Cole's shoulder again, and he felt her lean against him. Her blood was soaking through his shirt now, warm and sticky. "Tell him about the other thing, Gideon," she whispered, loud enough for them all to hear. "Tell him what you do with the bodies." Morse's face went white as bleached bone. "Shut your mouth, woman." But she continued, her voice growing stronger despite her wounds. "Medical colleges back east pay good money for fresh specimens. Don't matter if they're children or adults, long as they're intact." Cole's rifle swung toward Morse, but Hawkins was faster. The sheriff's Colt cleared leather with practiced ease, and suddenly Cole was staring down the barrel of certain death. "Now, Cole, let's be reasonable about this." Hawkins' thumb pulled back the hammer with a metallic click that seemed to echo forever. "We've got business to finish with the lady, and then we'll be on our way. No need for you to die over someone else's troubles." The wind had died completely. The desert held its breath, waiting. Cole could feel the woman's weight against him, could smell the copper scent of her blood and something else, something like flowers left too long in a closed room. "What did you do to Sarah?" Cole's voice was steady now, filled with the calm that comes when a man steps beyond fear into something darker. Hawkins smiled, and in that smile was the answer to every question Cole had carried for 6 months. "Sarah was a fine woman," Hawkins said, never lowering his gun. "Pity she couldn't mind her own business." The woman's grip tightened on Cole's shoulder. When she spoke, her voice carried an echo he hadn't noticed before, like words spoken from the bottom of a deep well. "She found them digging up little Mary Thompson's grave. Saw them loading her body into Morse's wagon like she was nothing more than meat for market." Cole's throat constricted. Mary Thompson had been Tommy's age when the consumption took her. Sarah had helped prepare the body, had sewn the tiny white dress the child was buried in. "Sarah followed us," Morse spoke up, his voice defensive. "Started asking questions around town, talking to other families. We couldn't let her ruin everything. So you killed her." Cole's finger found his rifle's trigger. The metal was cold against his skin. "Was supposed to look like an accident," Hawkins admitted. "Woman driving alone on that mountain road, wagon wheel comes loose, terrible tragedy. Would have worked perfect if she hadn't written that damn letter." The woman behind Cole made a sound that might have been laughter if it hadn't carried so much pain. "The letter she hid in Tommy's grave. The letter that told the whole story." Cole's world shifted again. "You went to Tommy's grave?" "Had to," she whispered. "Sarah knew they'd come for her. She left evidence, wrote down names, dates, everything. Hid it where she knew only someone who truly loved her would find it." The woman stepped around Cole, her movements now fluid despite her wounds. In the fading light, she seemed to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer stone. "I came looking for justice, Cole. For all of us." Hawkins' gun hand started to shake. "You're dead. I killed you myself, put 3 bullets in your chest. You killed my body," she said simply. But some things are stronger than death. The air around the ranch grew cold, unseasonably cold for the desert evening. The horses began to dance nervously, their eyes rolling white. One of Hawkins' men tried to wheel his mount around, but the animal refused to move, as if held by invisible chains. Sarah? Cole's voice broke on the name. She turned to him, and in the dying light he could see through her, could see the barn wall behind where she stood. But her storm cloud eyes were warm now, filled with the love he remembered. "I'm sorry I couldn't come back sooner," she said. "But I had to gather the others first. Had to show them the way." Behind the mounted men, shapes began to rise from the desert floor like morning mist. Small shapes, child-sized, moving with purpose toward the living. The children came slowly, their forms shifting between substance and shadow in the twilight. Cole recognized some of them: Mary Thompson in her burial dress, little Pete Sawyer who drowned in the creek, others whose names were carved on weathered headstones in the cemetery beyond town. Hawkins tried to fire, but his gun wouldn't discharge. The hammer fell on empty air, again and again, while the children moved closer with the inexorable patience of the grave. "We only wanted peace," Mary Thompson said, her voice like wind through autumn leaves. "We only wanted to sleep." Morse broke first. He spurred his horse hard, but the animal reared and threw him into the dirt. The undertaker scrambled backward on hands and knees, his face twisted with terror. "It was just business," he babbled. "Just business, nothing personal." The children surrounded him. Their touch was gentle, almost loving, but where their small hands made contact, Morse's skin began to blacken like frostbite. His screams echoed across the desert until they weren't screams anymore, just the whisper of wind through empty bones. One by one, the others fell. The strange men collapsed without a sound, as if their hearts simply forgot to beat. Hawkins lasted longest, his badge melting against his chest like heated metal, until finally he toppled from his horse and lay still. When it was over, the children turned to Cole and Sarah. Their eyes held no malice, only the tired satisfaction of a job completed. "Will you come with us now?" Mary asked Sarah, extending one translucent hand. Sarah looked at Cole, and he saw the longing in her face, the pull of whatever lay beyond. But she also saw his need, his year of grief that had hollowed him out like a dead tree. "Not yet," she said finally. "Not quite yet." The children nodded with ancient understanding and began to fade, becoming one with the desert wind. Only Mary lingered, looking back at Cole with eyes that held depths no child should possess. "Some debts," she said, "can only be paid with love." Then she too was gone, and Cole stood alone in his ranch yard with the woman who had been his wife, who was his wife still, despite everything that death had tried to steal. Sarah's form was growing fainter as the last light left the sky, but her smile was as real as sunrise. "Will I see you again?" Cole asked. "When it's time," she said. "When you're ready to let go." The stars emerged one by one overhead, cold and distant as witnesses to the night's revelations. Cole watched until Sarah faded completely, then picked up the wooden horse from the dirt and held it against his chest. In the distance, coyotes began to sing their ancient songs of loss and remembrance. Cole listened until dawn touched the eastern mountains, and finally understood that some stories never truly end, they just wait for the right moment to begin again.